Gracie's clusterization functionality essentially allows you to provide Gracie a set of documents and then, without having any prior models on the system, group those documents into relevant clusters. So the example that I want to show is what Gracie would do with a set of research papers spanning a set of different industries. The first thing we do is we add a new cluster set. This is just going to contain all the documents that we want to clusterize. We go into the cluster set, we can start to add those documents. So here we can select all of the research papers that we want to cluster. Once the documents have finished uploading, you can create a new cluster group. This is essentially the set of parameters that you want to run for this clusterization process. So you can give it a name. You can specify the number of iterations to refine the clusters, the minimum number of clusters, maximum number of clusters, and the maximum names. These names are recommendations that Gracie pulls out to give you some insight as to what the clusters are actually about. So you can see that there are 6 clusters that Gracie has created from this cluster run. If we select the first cluster, we can see there are 30 documents, and we can look at the matches with the names that Gracie's generated. You can see things like behavior, bullying, background, attention. We can see that these are probably research papers about soft sciences, so social studies or behavioral studies. And it seems to be focused around children and things like childhood, maybe online bullying. We saw cyber and bullying. We can take a look at the documents by selecting the eye icon as well, just so you can read the research papers if you want. If we go into the next cluster, we can see that we have things like agricultural, crop, environmental, farming. So this is probably about more nature focused research papers as opposed to the science or soft science ones that were in the previous cluster. You can see things like organic farming are in the titles of the research papers. Go to the next cluster, we can see that cancer cases, clinical, so this is definitely a more medical focused group. Fourth cluster, we have things like climate. We go to the second page, tick. So this is also environmental, but doesn't seem to be focused on farming like the previous one. We saw things like moose. And if we go to the fourth, we can see things like cancer again, clinical. So this is probably a different cluster of medical journals that Gracie pulled out. And the last cluster has things foot, force, heel. So this is about running, physics around running, it seems like. And again, just to reiterate, we don't have any models on Gracie that are focused on these subject areas. We don't have medical models, we don't have running models, we don't have farming models. This is using the big model that powers essentially all of Gracie's functionality. And this clusterizer works across essentially any domain of knowledge as long as it uses unstructured English language.